Boom. Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Health. And we're going to go through the Board of Health meeting for Tuesday, May 14, 2019. I'm John Hutchings, and to my right is Commissioner Ty Menser. To his right is the Clerk of the Board, Lydia Hodgkinson. And to her right is Shelley Slaughter, the Director of Public Health and Social Services. And in the middle is Dr. Rachel Wood, our County Health Doctor. And at the end, to her right, is our County Manager, Ramiro Chavez. And thank you all for being here. We have a packed house. And so now I'm going to look for an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve agenda for May 14th, 2019.
I'll second it. Commissioner Edwards is excused today. So it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have an agenda. And the approval of the meeting minutes from April the 9th, 2019.
Move to approve meeting minutes from April 9th, 2019.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from April 19th, or April 9th, 2019. Any changes? Nope. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Done. Item number 2, the fun part, proclamations and presentations. And we have a proclamation for Nurses Week, May 6th through the 12th. And so I'm going to call up our senior epidemiologist and disease prevention expert, and that is John Aplenalp. How you doing, John?
Good, thanks.
I said it right, didn't I?
Close.
What is it?
Uplanalp.
Uplanalp. Okay, yeah. Uplanalp. Thank you.
So, as the commissioner said, my name is John Uplanalp. I'm the senior epidemiologist at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and I'm here to speak to item number 2, which is recognition of National Nursing Week. And I'm really happy that the commissioners have chosen to declare this National Nursing Week. I work with many nurses, and I know that every day I'm benefiting from their knowledge and their insight. And today, to speak more directly to the importance of nurses and nursing in the community, we have a group of nurses here, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Gretchen Toller, and I am a nurse. I'm the maternal child health manager.
We're still getting nurses coming up. Come on now, don't be shy.
Hi, my name is Beth Cumberland, and I'm a nurse at the health department. I do communicable disease, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth.
I'm Sandy Cooprider. I'm a nurse with Nurse Family Partnership with Thurston County and Lewis County.
Hi, I'm Diane Hamilton. I work for Providence St. Peter Hospital. I've been a critical care nurse there for 38 years now.
Good grief.
And I recently started teaching nursing at St. Martin's as well.
Go Saints.
I'm Kay Smith. I've been retired for quite a long time, but been an RN for about 50 years. I've gotten to do a lot of different things in nursing. Probably the highlights were I did 3 medical missions to Haiti. Since I retired and moved to Thurston County, I have been involved with Camp Leo, Camp for Type 1 Diabetes Children, and I also got involved with the MRC, which is a fantastic program. And I would like to say that the VRP program for volunteer and retired providers is absolutely fantastic for any nurse that's looking at retiring.
Beautiful. Good advert. Thank you. And get the mic down so we can hear you.
I'll get on my tippy toes. My name is Lori Montoya, and I'm a nurse with Nurse Family Partnership at Thurston County.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sherman. I'm with Nurse Family Partnership in Thurston County as well.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm a nurse here in Thurston County with Nurse Family Partnership.
Thank you. Is there one more hiding out here that we don't know about? Okay. And it's important to us that we recognize nurses as well. And we have a proclamation to read.
Proclamation time, all right.
And don't sit down, because we have a proclamation to hand you and then a photo. Where's our photo guy? There, okay. Oh, there, gal, I'm sorry. I was looking for our PIO, Brian, so thank you.
All right, Thurston County Proclamation, Nurses Week, May 6th through May 12th. Whereas Nurses Week has been celebrated since 1991 from May 6th, National Nurses Day, through May 12th, Florence Nightingale's birthday. And whereas the American Nurses Association has declared the week of May 6th through 12th, 2019 as National Nurses Week, with the theme 4 Million Reasons to Celebrate, a nod to nurses' sheer number, as well as the tagline, Nurses Inspire, Innovate, Influence. And whereas thousands of nurses work in Washington State, including nearly 84,000 registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and advanced registered nurse practitioners, including staff nurses, nurse educators, nurse practitioners, school nurses, public health nurses, long-term care nurses, nurse managers, and nurses in many other practice areas. And whereas nurses are public health heroes who make our community safer and healthier and contribute to our community as community advocates, educators, and providers of critical health services. And whereas Thurston County nurses are committed to serving our community 365 days a year and support many vulnerable individuals and their families with a caring and competent presence. And whereas Thurston County nurses represent the front line of disease prevention, health promotion, and achieving optimal health in most health systems, including public health. And whereas Thurston County nurses' contributions are considered crucial to the delivery of effective, high-quality care with positive, lasting outcomes. And whereas nurses improve the quality of life in our communities through their tireless efforts to educate, support, and provide important resources to their patients. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Health hereby proclaims May 6th through 12th, 2019 as Nurses Week in Thurston County and calls upon all citizens, communities, government agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, organizations, and businesses to celebrate nurses' accomplishments and efforts to improve the health of our residents and show our appreciation for Thurston County's nurses, not just during this week, but at every opportunity throughout the year. Adopted this 14th day of May, 2019, Board of Health.
Yeah.
Do we have time for just a couple nurses to share a little bit of their stories with you?
Let me see. Why, yes, we do.
Oh, wonderful. Beth, do you want to start?
Thank you very much for this opportunity and for that wonderful proclamation. I have been a nurse for almost 30 years, and it is an incredible profession that allows you to work with people from birth to death, and I've actually done that in my career. Right now, I'm just have returned from the Peace Corps, and now I'm serving at the health department doing communicable disease, working with health promotion and prevention, also working with TB. So it's an honor to be here, to be a part of this community, and thank you. It's a wonderful profession, so thank you for acknowledging it.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, there you
I'll
go.
move it down.
Thank you.
Thank you again. It is an honor to be here and be recognized. I appreciate that very much. And as I mentioned, I've been a nurse for quite a while and have really felt it as a calling. I wasn't one of those who thought as a child, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a nurse. But when I was in my first year of college, trying to figure out what I was going to do, I had an aunt who I was pretty close with who always wanted to be a nurse herself, and so she said, why don't you be the nurse? And I thought, well, I could do that. I'm good at science. I get along well with people, and so I always give her the credit for the great career that I've had and for the many lives I've been able to impact, either directly as a patient care provider or through teaching other nurses how to be a critical care nurse, or even in now the university setting, people who want to be a nurse, teaching them how to be a nurse. So it's been a great career, and I think there's just so many opportunities for nurses, and as Beth said, from birth to death, and lots of places in between, and from prevention to promotion, to palliative care. It's just such a wonderful opportunity. I would encourage anybody who has, someone in their life who's just maybe considering being a nurse, to just support them and encourage them, because it's a fabulous opportunity. There's so many avenues that are available to nurses. So, and I brought you all a book, so I hope you enjoy it. There's many aspects of care outlined in that book, and so I think every human should read it. and I have no financial interest in this book at all.
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
So there's one for, is this for Commissioner Edwards then?
Will go on.
For Commissioner Edwards? Oh, beautiful, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
don't know about you, but we're avid readers. Are you?
Oh, yeah.
We are avid readers, thank you.
I think the thing that was best for me about my nursing career is it allowed me to work in so many different avenues of nursing. I worked in hospitals, I taught, I worked in offices, I got to see people when they were sick, when they were healthy. It's just a fantastic thing to do. I really loved it, and now I am able to work with the MRC, Camp Leo, and those things just couldn't be more rewarding. And one of the nice volunteer things I think about MRC is you can sign up and work when you want to versus a volunteer job that you are restricted every Monday or whatever your time frame is. So it's been a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And as more retire, we are experiencing a huge shortage nationally of nurses.
That's where the VRP program comes in.
Yeah. Gretchen.
Hi. I was just thinking, I met with one of my daughter's friends the other day who just graduated from college last spring, and she's thinking about going into nursing now. And she asked me, she said, "Why did you become a nurse?" And I had to think, back a ways, and I was thinking, what I said is to do what I do right now. I knew I wanted to work in public health. I knew I wanted to work with mothers and babies and to have an impact on people's lives. And she had never heard of anything like Nurse Family Partnership. So it was interesting to see her face light up with the thought of being able to provide some prevention and intervention and meet families where they're at in their homes. And I just want to do a shout out to every nurse in this room, because it's a tremendously hard job, but a very rewarding job. Our team, and I know every nurse works hard every single day. They pour their heart and soul into it. You carry a lot of emotional, stuff with it. You don't go home without thinking about people and the lives that you've touched. So I just want to commend everyone for the hard work that they do, the amount of hoops that we jump through to keep our funding in place so that we can do this work and have an impact with the people that we get to visit with. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Gretchen. Are more nurses coming up? No?
So it's just a very very small, fun token of our appreciation. We have for each of our nurses a little star glow stick wand, because we know that each of you are superstars, and so
Yep.
just thanks to all of you for the work that you do.
And you all glow.
Photo time.
Plus, Florence Nightingale was the lady with the lamp. So
You say that again, Doc, louder?
Florence Nightingale, she was the lady with the lamp during the Crimean War. She made rounds in the middle of the night with her
Okay.
lamp.
Hence the light. Oh, that's great metaphor. It works perfectly. So bring your stars up and your sticks. Here, you got your stars. I don't know if we have it up. Who's receiving these? Where's John? Are you coming up, John, at all? Yeah, let's spread them out then so it makes sense. I don't know what makes sense. One for NFP, or these NFP. I'm not sure. We have two more.
No, we just kind of make it up.
Grab it. Grab one. Grab one. Grab one. Thank you. Come on in. And come on in close. Come on in close. Thank you, John. And let your stars shine. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. What's that? You're very welcome. Thank you, Beth. And I just want to add for the folks at home watching, the book is Being Mortal, and it's medicine and what matters in the end. I look forward to that. Thank you. Next presentation is proclamation is Drinking Water Week is May 6th through the 12th. And so we have Eric Iverson, our Enviro Health Biologist. Come on up. How you doing, sir?
So my name is Eric Iverson. I'm the biologist here at Thurston County, supervising the drinking water program, also running the water laboratory. Today I'm here to talk to you because it's Drinking Water Week, to give you an overview of our drinking water program and also introduce you to a couple of our partners that deal directly with the various water systems that we work together with. So the purpose of our drinking water program is basically to regulate water supplies in Thurston County, making sure that they're delivering a reliable source of safe drinking water to the public, and that includes communities, places where people work, and or congregate. So the primary functions of our program are, I got it. The primary functions, there's 4 of them for our program, and we administer here at the county a Group B program. Group B water systems are smaller public water systems, defined as, I can get onto those in a little bit. We also do Group A water systems through a partnership with the State Department of Health, where we provide some technical assistance. The other parts, we have contracts with Department of Ecology, where we have a part in assuring that the well sealing, well tagging, and decommissioning is done to a standard that is appropriate. We also do well site inspections for public water systems, making sure that a source location is good before it's drilled, hopefully before it's drilled. Mm-hmm. And so to touch a little bit on each of these programs, well, first, the drinking water does meet county strategic plan initiatives, number 1, to improve the community health, wellness, and safety, and also supports initiative number 8 to support a robust and well-balanced infrastructure systems for thriving communities. Our drinking water program has 4 employees who work in it, roughly coming out to about 2 FTEs as a whole. So as I mentioned, we administer a Group B program. These are mid-sized public water systems, typically less than 15 homes, or serving less than 25 people a day if they are a business. And there's some nuances to that you can read about as well. In Thurston County, there are 526 Group B public water systems right now, and they are under the permitting authority of Thurston County, and we make sure they're adhering to state standards as well. What we do, we provide technical assistance to these systems as needed, doing site visits if there's problems, and we maintain a robust files for the history of these systems, how they came to be, and where they're at. We also review designs for new systems that are coming on, and oversee water quality monitoring throughout the lifetime of these systems. Another small faction of Group Bs is an exempt status that we have, and these are low-risk operations that, because they are low risk, they are exempted to many of the ongoing monitoring requirements, a lot of design review requirements, but still there is a minimal amount of oversight to make sure that they have a good source and a good start so that they can go on their way. These type places are like places that serve food, motels, any services that are provided for treatment or child care or adult family homes, things like that. Our Group A program is a partnership with State Department of Health. Group A systems are larger systems. They include all of our municipalities and then communities that have 15 or more homes attached to them, or larger businesses, for instance, that might serve more than 25 people a day on average. So with what we do in the Group A program primarily is provide technical assistance at the state's request and also do surveys of these water systems. And accompanied with the satellite management agencies or the managers of these water systems, we go out and look at everything. Everything from the physical, what's there, what's in the ground, what's in the pump house, to their planning documents, making sure that they're fiscally viable, and the managerial capacity is adequate for a system of that size. And there are 303 Group A systems serving Thurston County. So I touched base a little bit on satellite management agencies, and this is really the reason we're here today, is to celebrate satellite management agencies. And they are the people out there who own and or manage water systems. We currently have 9 approved SMAs in Thurston County, and we have 2 of them here today. The 2 that we have here today are kind of different spectrums of satellite management agencies. We have Washington Water Service, who owns and operates water systems. And we also have H2O Management Services that simply manages. They don't get involved in the ownership, but just the operational side of things. SMAs, they're responsible for day-to-day operations of the water systems and making sure that they follow the rules for both Group A and B systems. They ensure the water is safe and reliable. They have the capacity for management and technical experience and financial responsibilities to run these systems. And they either do things on their own or advocate to the systems of this is what you need to do, and hope that they take that advice so that their systems remain reliable. And just to touch, because it is important, we also have a lot of private wells here in Thurston County where it's outside the scope of what we do. There's over 20,000 private wells here in Thurston County, and they're largely unregulated and largely unmonitored unless they take the initiative to do so themselves. Under the construction phase of building a home, that is a time when we can ask for water quality and quantity evaluation to make sure it's suitable for a home, and that's a certified certificate of water availability. And I'll take this moment now to let the public know who's watching this, it's a good idea to have your water tested every once in a while, especially if there's a change in your quality. There's an illness in the home, something that can't be explained, you've been doing repairs. It's often something that's overlooked, but can improve the health of your household as well. I mentioned I run the water lab, and we do a lot of private testing. Unfortunately, a lot of it's due to a real estate transaction, and that's most they'll see, but some people are proactive. And it's nice to hear stories of telling people what I would presume to be bad news, but they thank you for it because that is what has been ailing their family for some time, and they can take steps to remedy that. So, do you guys have any questions about our drinking water program?
How would it come that you would be testing private wells? I mean, do the people pay you to do that, or?
Yes,
okay.
We are a fee-for-service lab, and we have several pickup locations for sample bottles. We also have drop-off locations. The lab is located here, right in building number 1, and we have a little kiosk right outside, so
okay.
If y'all want to get your water tested, we can take care of that.
Okay.
Doctor?
I really appreciate the work that you do. We don't realize how fortunate we are to just go turn on the tap and drink the water. In other parts of the planet, that's not possible, and you can get sick from drinking the water. Also, there are times when our water is put at risk by, say, the line breaks for some reason, and then air gets sucked into the line. There's also times like if there's flooding and the well head gets covered with mud, and the vent sucks stuff down into the well. And also there's encroachment on the quality of our water through groundwater that travels from sites of contamination through various soil types. And so this is a good program.
reasons to test.
Yeah.
And we also still have some communities that have asbestos in their pipes, don't we? Their water pipes?
Dakota's working on it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to throw them out, but okay. It is, and you figure, oh my gosh, are you serious?
It's dwindling.
So we're helping them replace those.
Aging infrastructure is a problem, and it's
Yeah.
something to think
And-
about for the future. And our SMAs, that's something that they do.
Of the over 20,000 private wells, is that number shrinking at all?
No.
It's remaining constant? It's not growing? So it's remaining kind of constant? Tell me, Eric.
We see more new wells being drilled than wells being decommissioned.
Wow, okay. All right. Anything else?
No. So
Thank
I would
you.
like to introduce, as far as for the receiving of proclamation, we have two SMAs, like I mentioned, and Sean Odell with Washington Water Service Company. They own and operate many systems throughout the state, plus here in Thurston County. Heard great things about them throughout my entire career. Also, Andrew Noble with H2O Management Services, who, again, operates multi-jurisdictional and manages water systems. So,
Do you want to have them come up?
yeah, I want
Okay,
them to
then.
come up.
Come on up. Thank you both for coming up, or coming in. We appreciate that. Come on over here. And if you'd like to say a few words, you're welcome to. But we'll read a proclamation and hand them out. You're not required to talk, but if you want to, go ahead.
I've never been known not to pass up a microphone. Basically, I did appreciate what was said about you never know, appreciate your water until you turn the tap on and it doesn't come out. And then we get called. And there's a bit of responsibility with that all the way around. With breaks, and proper repairs and that sort of thing, 90% of it is what's never seen by the general public. But it takes a bit to maintain a water system and keep it running properly.
Drew, are you related to the Darrell Noble family? Darrell Noble?
No.
Nope, okay.
Not that I know of. I don't know.
That's right. Thank you. Sean, you want to say? There you go.
Sure. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for
Afternoon.
having us, and thank you for showing this appreciation during Water Week. I appreciate Eric doing this presentation. He kind of just skimmed the surface of how water utilities actually work, and I appreciate that. If you see those numbers in that presentation, just alone for Thurston County, can you imagine operating in 8 different counties, 197 plus water systems, and all the requirements that have to be done? Well, I'll tell you 3 words of how we do it. Quality, service, value. That's our motto, and we stick by it. Many people don't realize what the impact is on water until, like Drew said, it stops working at the faucet. What you had mentioned, Rachel, is, Ms. Wood, sorry, is just a skim of the surface of some of the things that we've experienced or we're involved with on a daily, weekly, monthly routine. So I appreciate you bringing that forward. We're also not only water providers, we're also water educators. A lot of people feel at times that water is a God-given resource. Why should we have to pay for it? The delivery and the assurance that that water is good, safe, and ready for use is a lot of things to do in that component. You can't just turn on the faucet and expect to have good drinking water. So I appreciate this opportunity, But then again, I'm just one small element in this realm. There's two of my staff members out there that are very important. Brian Houghton, he's our superintendent in this area, and Zach Osborne, he's one of our top operators. Without guys like that and women like that in the field, we can't exist to provide the water for you folks. So I would also like to appreciate them especially, and the rest of our staff at Washington Water. Last thing I want to leave you with, we are the largest investor-owned water utility in Western Washington. People look at us kind of differently when they first hear because it's investor-owned. They think that nobody should make money off of that. However, we are fully sustainable in our own. We don't qualify for grants. We don't qualify for loans like state loans. So we actually are self-sufficient. We do have people to answer to, but it's not all about money. What it is, like I said, our motto: quality, service, value. Thank you and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do you have any comments before you read?
No.
About water quality? I just want to add, I'm glad you said that as well, Doc, because I, as many people have here, been to other countries where you really should not drink the water. So when you take a shower, you brush your teeth, or you order something, you don't want ice in it, you just become very paranoid about that, lest you be very, very sick. So we do take it for granted in this country. So thank you all for all you do. I'm ready.
All right. Thurston County Proclamation, Drinking Water Week, May 5th through 11th. Whereas during May 5th through 11th, 2019, we celebrate Drinking Water Week, a national observance that highlights the value of water to each of us in our everyday lives. And whereas this year marks the 45th anniversary of Safe Drinking Water Act that forms the core of our efforts to provide quality drinking water and protect the health of our citizens. And whereas in Thurston County, people are served daily by more than 918 public drinking water systems that provide water from a range of places, including our roadside rest stops, school drinking fountains, and home water faucets. And whereas each community relies on their water system, whether large or small, to provide a safe and dependable supply of water, both now and in the future. And whereas Drinking Water Week recognizes the importance of water source protection and conservation, as well as the value, importance, and fragility of our state's water resources. And whereas the Washington State Department of Health partners with Thurston County Environmental Health and water system operators to ensure the water delivered to consumers, meets federal and state standards, which is vital to Thurston County's economy and to the public's health. And whereas the tasks facing state drinking water programs and public water systems continue to be extremely challenging, especially in an era of scarce resources. And whereas the drinking water infrastructure in many cities is aging and presents daunting resource demands, as a county and a nation, we continue to be challenged by new and emerging drinking water contaminants associated with our industrial society. And whereas the health, basic needs, and quality of life of Thurston County's residents depend on an ample supply of safe, quality drinking water. And whereas Thurston County renews its commitment to build on the successes of the past 45 years and to continue to work with all our partners in the water community to fully realize the public health goals of the Safe Drinking Water Act through celebrating Drinking Water Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Health hereby proclaims May 5th through 11th Drinking Water Week in Thurston County and encourages all citizens to recognize this precious resource and to help protect our waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, to actively support the upkeep of our drinking water infrastructure, to become involved in local water issues, and plan for its efficient use. Adopted this 14th day of May 2019, Board of Health.
We have a proclamation for you, and get your private systems tested. Come on up, come on up. There you go, sir. Drew, Sean.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll get one too. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah. Come on, guys.
Come on up. Oh, we got others. Come on up.
No, it's okay, that's fine.
There we go.
I'm supposed to hide this doggone thing. Welcome. Come on in. Come in. Do you have all this in there?
It's all good.
Dude, we should have water to say cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Aw, our favorite, huh? Yeah. That's a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month, as if we're not aware. I love that. And so we have at the podium Carrie Hennon. Go ahead, Carrie, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Carrie Hennon. I'm part of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. I manage our treatment sales tax, which you will hear even a little more about later in the meeting. But in this role, it is my privilege to work with many county offices and departments, with the Thurston Mason BHO, with many community partners on building a system in our community that better meets the needs of individuals with mental health disorders. And so I will keep it brief and turn it over to a couple of those partners. Today, to speak to Mental Health Awareness Month, we have Mark Moffitt, who's a program manager in the area of veterans for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and then Marilyn Roberts from NAMI, Thurston, Mason counties. So we'll start with Mark.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Hi, Mark.
I'd like to first start by thanking all three of you. You can tell Gary later if you would. But your leadership in veteran matters is really important, and it's really appreciated. Without that leadership, or with that leadership, it's a great place for veterans to retire, live, and thrive in this community. I appreciate it. I'll just start with a couple little facts, just to show you the issue when it comes to veterans and mental health. So 25% of active duty soldiers have some type of mental health concern. Three of the top ones are traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, which happens at 15 times the rate in the military as it does in civilian, and then depression, which happens in all walks of life, but it's typically 5 times more prevalent in the military. But that's kind of understandable, considering the environment that we ask them to operate in, right? But it's still, there's a negative stigma attached to it. If you might recall the story of General Patton in World War II, where he berated 2 soldiers and slapped them, actually, based on the symptoms of PTSD that they were exhibiting, but back then it was shell shock or battle fatigue. Luckily today we have commanders that are more aware of mental health issues, so we don't have those type of situations as much, if at all. But one of the issues is veterans have a hard time understanding what's going on inside themselves, and a lot of times they'll disregard it and not seek help, and that becomes a problem. And one of the problems is it infects the entire family for that veteran. It can affect the children with anxiety and depression, not wanting and having a hard time with that relationship. I can tell you from personal experience, it took me 12 years to identify that problem. And it did affect that relationship with my daughters. But I can tell you, Commissioners, that it's never too late to seek help, and it's never too late to rebuild those relationships. And I think with this proclamation and awareness and bringing, and maybe showing that by seeking help, it's really about strength and not the weakness, I think that would help getting more veterans out there and seeking the opportunity to seek help for things that happened in the past. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Mark, very much. Marilyn.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. How are you today?
Wonderful, thank you. I'm grateful.
Great. Thank you so much for giving me and others time to talk about Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm here with 2 hats on today. I am actually on the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Board, and also I'm the Director of Operations for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We do cover Thurston and Mason counties. I'm here today to talk about mental health awareness. Shocking. The National Alliance on Mental Illness has been talking about this subject for 40 years. This is our 40th anniversary. Making a lot of progress, and I appreciate a lot of the swagger that NAMI has. Each year we come out with an awareness campaign with a little bit of shake up to it. A couple years in the past we used Stigma Free as one of our logos. That's my compadre here. I'm into mental health. So we've been kind of out there talking in public across the country. How do we bring this forward and make it a real conversation? So this year, NAMI has not disappointed. Their swagger goes a little farther. They're asking the big question, why care? Make sense? So we and our local volunteers with NAMI, we have been going out to events over the month of May, and we'll continue to do that towards the end of May. But we're asking the public, why do you care? So I'm going to have my friend Chris Chloe, one of our volunteers, he's going to hand out a form and some pens. And while you're sitting here, if you would be so kind as to just write in, why do you think mental health matters? Why should you care as a public person, as a private person, as an individual in this county or in our community? So why should you care? And I just real briefly, while he's doing that, I want to share a couple comments with you from folks that we've already talked to out in the community. Real simple, we were actually, Commissioner Menser, thank you for coming last night to fill in for you. I'm glad you made it back, Commissioner. But we had an open public gathering for people to talk about our jail system and how that connects with mental health and substance use. And so some of these were from last night's gathering. So I'm just real quickly going to share a couple of those with you. As you can see, the why care, very simple, and oddly enough, people are all over this. They're like, oh, give it to me. I really want to share with people what this means. So why care? How we treat the most vulnerable speaks to who we are as a society. Why care? Well-being matters. Health matters. Mental health impacts all of us. Friends, family, ourselves. It's a community issue, needing community to address all aspects. People are really thoughtful, but it can be really simple. Each person matters. Because mental illness touches everyone, everywhere, but no one talks about it. Because people need us to care and speak up. The most vulnerable often lacked resources to do so. That is why we are here. Everyone deserves to be treated as a human being. Because our family needs us. We are all part of this planetary family. Our health is dependent on our family's lives. There must not be a difference between mental health and other illnesses. One of my favorites. Because of my dad, my brother, my sister, my son, and me. Because my children are among the 5 persons statistically living with a mental illness. I didn't write this, but it's one of my personal favorites. Jail is not treatment. Less suicide. It affects all of our lives and the lives of those in our nation. It's an important piece of personal health. It's a part of overall health. And I know this came from an emergency services person, a drain on emergency services. It can happen to absolutely anyone. Because we care, because it affects all of us, let's eradicate stigma. Life depends on the continuity of care. When our life is better, my life is better. Because it's not something you get over or ignore. All people are important. Because hope is real. People's lives can get better, and I know they get better, because love wins. So I love to share that kind of experience because it's really at the heart of mental health awareness and what NAMI is striving for, to bring that awareness and that education to our community. So thank you for letting me share that. And I think the forms went out with a piece of paper, so if you feel so inclined to fill one out, you can just leave it on a chair in the back and I'll pick those up. And we're going to add them to our social media campaign. So
Beautiful.
Appreciate your time.
Well done. That's very clever. I like this. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a
a
great
good learning tool. Do you have any comments, questions or comments of Marilyn or Mark?
Just say with respect to Mark's comments about veterans, like I was a criminal defense attorney, and two of the places that I spent the most time working in my career was in Fairbanks, Alaska, and here in Thurston County, which are two places with huge veteran populations. And as a defense attorney and doing public defense, I got to see, some of these problems and unaddressed issues and how they resulted in, impacts to the community and to those families. And I got to work directly with those veterans and trying to sort through their problems. And we have Veterans Court here. I don't think we didn't have that in Fairbanks, but it was just, it was sobering to speak to the families of the individuals and learn their stories and, kind of what was behind the causes of that through their service to the country. So I was touched by a lot of those experiences living in those two places, so I appreciate his comments. And then the why care, what was really amazing about the ones that you read, 99% of those were just very compassionate, motivated by compassion. I agree with all of those reasons 100%. I always like to have in my back pocket, like for some people that may be compassion fatigued or not as compassionate as I am, I always like to have in my back pocket, a very practical argument that if you don't help people get services and treatment for these conditions, they're going to end up in our criminal justice system, and we're going to spend a lot of money to achieve nothing. And that affects our entire community through our budget and through the dollars we have to spend on other resources. So if I find somebody that doesn't seem to have the compassion that, that argument almost always works to make people understand that this is something we absolutely have to address. And I'm happy to see that more and more people are seeming to come to that realization. So as reflected in our legislative priorities and some of the new bills and budgetary priorities. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
I'll start by addressing Mark's comments and the veterans as well. And I'll make it very brief because every time I talk about veterans and mental health and such, my allergies kick in. And it's difficult to speak. But as soon as you started, Marilyn, with the why care, my first thought was, because it's family. It's my son from the war, and it's my daughter-in-law and our grandbabies. It's very personal. And I've heard him actually say, I would much rather lose a limb, because people can see that, than have PTSD and a TBI. And it just breaks your heart. As for the rest of the folks, aside from veterans, I've been working since 2001 with BHR and our mental health service providers and the officers in training to divert folks with mental illness when they've committed a crime, especially when it's been born out of mental illness and not out of a criminal intent. You don't put them in doggone jail. You don't do it. And we're still making strides. And great things are done by a series of small things brought together and put together, and that's exactly what you folks are doing. And hundreds and hundreds, thousands like you as well that are out there all the time trying to change the stigma, break the stigma, reduce it, and provide services to those folks that really need it. And I truly applaud you for what you do tirelessly and with great compassion and passion as well. So thank you very much for that. Now we have a problem. Yes?
Could you do me a favor and let everybody know what you're doing next week for the VERG on your discussion? Is that appropriate? Just to...
The VERG next week, which is the Veterans Employees Resource Group. And it's Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Well, anyway, it's next week.
Wednesday at 2.
Okay, Wednesday, thank you. And I want to look for because I don't want to misread it, but I'm presenting on veterans with traumatic brain injury and PTSD and the surrounding issues. And my son was going to present with me as well. But aside from, well, that's the bad time of day because he takes care of his 3-year-old son, and these pick up kids from school at that hour, and he's not able to do it. He just can't do it. So I give him plenty of room. but that's what I'll be doing, and I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, the seasonal allergies are terrible this time of year. But thank you for that, for putting that out. And so it's not only just veterans, but even family members of veterans will be in this group as well. So thank you for bringing that up, Mark. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thurston County Proclamation, Mental Health Awareness Month 2019. Whereas mental health is an essential part of overall health, and whereas 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health problem in any given year, and 1 in 22 adults lives with a serious mental illness, such as major depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, and whereas mental health conditions can affect a person at any point in their life, but young people and military veterans experience mental health conditions at rates higher than the general population. And whereas approximately 1/2 of chronic mental illness begins by age of 14 and 3/4 by age 24, and long delays, sometimes decades, often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help. And whereas 40% of Thurston County 10th graders experienced symptoms of depression in the past year. And whereas early identification and treatment can make a difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery. And whereas it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental illness in order to provide and obtain help when it is needed. And whereas Thurston County and key partners such as community-based behavioral health agencies, the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, and the National Alliance for Mental Illness work to ensure access to high-quality treatment and support for children and adults in need of mental health services throughout Thurston County. And whereas every individual and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long has surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Health hereby proclaims May 2019 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Thurston County to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote identification and treatment of mental illnesses and substance use disorders. Adopted this 14th day of May, 2014, Board of Health.
Yeah. And Marilyn, I'm sorry you couldn't make it last night. That's okay. It took longer to go from SeaTac to Olympia than it did from Sacramento to SeaTac. It's crazy. Oh, come on up, come on up. Yeah, Chris.
Mark, come on.
There's me, Mark.
That's what I said.
Thank you. Marilyn. I only have 3. There's one for you. Who else gets one? Yeah.
Then I have something to do with my hand. I know.
Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Don't be shy. Squeeze. Yay. What's that? I like that. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. That is really clever with the heart, too. No, not the blank one, no.
The right end.
Yep.
We would like yours.
Get back to our
All
agenda
right.
here.
We'll let the dust settle. All right. Moving on to the agenda, number 3. Item number 3 is the opportunity for the public to address the board. Do we have anybody signed up to address the board? Checking, checking. No. No rules of engagement then. Good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll move on to agenda item number 4, department items, Thurston Mason, BHO, Behavioral Health Organization, and True Blood Program. And is it going to be Shelley or Mark? Who's coming up? Mark? Mark, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon. Good to see you again. Introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to address the Board of Thurston County Commissioners. Usually you have a different hat on when we talk. My name is Mark Friedman. I'm the CEO for Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. I am happy today to be able to present to you the True Blood team. They are part of our mental health licensed service provider arm called Olympic Health and Recovery Services from the BHO. There have been a number of discussions today, particularly regarding the nexus between mental health and jail. And the True Blood team is one that's essentially created, funded by a grant, a time-limited grant. Hopefully we get to renew it to continue to provide excellent services to a class of individuals who basically, how do we create diversion from jail services for individuals who are determined not competent to stand trial. These are individuals who often have in the past languished in jail beds or at Western State Hospital in the forensic unit, and this group of folks have been doing an amazing job that's been acknowledged even by the folks, the grantors of the funding, in terms of moving people back out into the community safely and sustaining them. So I will get out of the way because I can't talk too much, and let the staff themselves speak to it. Just one thing I want to mention as we go through a point of, with the state of major changes in mental health delivery, I am hoping as this hits the airways that services, particularly in jails, that are not funded through Medicaid are not forgotten as we look towards integration and really try to enhance the whole behavioral health system. Thank you. Morgan?
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Morgan Black. I am the lead mental health professional for the True Blood team that is stationed out at Thurston County Jail. Our team...
Morgan, can you speak right into that microphone or lift it up for you higher? There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our team is made up of 3 mental health professionals and 3 peer counselors. The mental health professionals are stationed out at the Thurston County Jail, and our peer counselors are stationed out of the Thurston Mason BHO office, and they're the ones that work with our clients out in the community. As Mark mentioned, our clients are those that have been found not competent or has had competency restoration before in their history, and we focus on diversion or re-entry. So I'm going to let Martha talk about what we do while they're in jail.
Great. Thank you, Morgan.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us here. My name's Martha Reed. I'm an MHP with Thurston Mason BHO, and I work out of the Thurston County Jail. So that's where our office is. As Morgan said, we have 3 MHPs that work in the jail. Our schedules are such that we have an MHP in the jail 7 days a week to respond as needed. What we do, because this is the True Blood program, is the result of a class action lawsuit. We must identify the class members. So we spend a lot of time. Morgan spends a lot of time coordinating with Western State Hospital when perhaps clients come back, or we get reports when somebody's been found incompetent. So we get our referrals from lots of different places, from the attorneys, prosecutors, defense attorneys, jail staff, deputies that may see something going on. So we're getting referrals from a lot of different sources. So what I do in the jail is when we get a referral, I would go out and meet the individual either in the dorm or, in their unit, and just talk to them, explain True Blood. A lot of them have never heard about it. We've done a lot of work since the program started, March of last year, spending time educating within the jail, putting posters up, that kind of thing, to try to get the word out that if anybody's ever had or currently has any competency issues, contact True Blood. So we get a lot of self-referrals from the inmates who want to know more about True Blood, think they might be eligible. So when we go out and meet somebody who may be a class member, we're doing a number of different things. So kind of a quick assessment, also intro to education about what our program is and how it can help the individual. And also getting a sense of, are they amenable to wanting help, either with substance use or mental illness? So we use a adult needs and strengths assessment tool, which is really comprehensive and collaborative, so that the client works with us to develop, to identify strengths and needs, and that becomes then part of a treatment plan and a release plan. Part of what we do too is work closely with the courts, with the prosecutors and the defense attorneys, because in the cases that we work to divert our clients out, it has to be agreed upon by the prosecutor. That's part of it. Now, if it's a re-entry, they've already served their time, we can still pick them up and provide services. But if it's a diversion, we have to really collaborate with the courts. So we spend a lot of time doing that, putting together recommendation letters. So there's a lot of work that goes through, number one, kind of just funneling down to identify class members, and then this process to coordinate and collaborate with the courts to try and get them released into our program. In a diversion case, when the prosecuting attorney's office does approve it, then we get really busy. We put together, we've already done a release plan, which is kind of like a treatment plan. So it's like, here's all the things that the client is agreeing to do. They sign off on it. So we're all on the same page. So once that happens, our peer support counselors who work kind of out in the field with our class members, we coordinate when our clients get released from the jail. Our peer support steps in, meets them at the release door, and we do a warm handoff. So they're not just sent out of jail, with nowhere to go and no one to pick them up. So that kind of leads us into the next step. This is Debbie Kirby. She is one of our peer support counselors, and I'll let you talk about that.
Hi, thank you for
Hi,
this
Debbie.
opportunity. Peer work is, I am a peer support specialist because I had challenges with mental health and substance use disorders, and I found my way through. And I carry the message of strength, courage, strength, and hope that there is recovery. A lot of the folks that we work with are in crisis, and they don't know who they are. They're right in the middle of it, of a mental health crisis. So we pick them up, we greet them at the door, we have funding, we have housing funding, we have food funding, we have transportation funding, we have identification document funding, because often these people lose everything when they go incarcerated, because everyone takes their stuff. Most of them are homeless. So we take them step by step through the process. We temporarily house them.
Just get a little bit closer to that microphone.
I'm sorry,
Thank
we
you.
temporarily house them, and then we get all their benefits turned on and get them their identification documents back and get them into mental health services and or substance use services, whatever's appropriate. So, and also we pay attention to the medical, if there's any medical issues. So basically peer support is coming alongside that person, treating that person with respect and honor, building them up, and showing them recovery is possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again.
Hi.
I just wanted to mention some of the True Blood program's intended benefits. So our program helps reduce recidivism and time spent in jail, reduce the cost to criminal justice system, reduce emergency and hospitalization services, increase access to treatment and essential community resources, increase hope and chance for recovery, and harm reduction for the individual and community. And I would like to say, so we started our program in March of 2018. So for the first year, our MHPs had screened over 251 inmates. And so these are inmates that have been referred to us because they had some mental health issues going on. 82% of them were male, 18% were female. 50% of the 251 screened were not class members, so they were referred out to other programs within the jail. 31% of those they were class members, but they were not recommended or approved for different reasons. So they weren't amenable, or they were too acute, or the prosecutor just said no due to charges. 19% of them were recommended and approved for True Blood peer support. So out of those, we had 38 individuals on the peer support or peer counselors caseload. 24% of those were diversion, 76 were reentry, 47 were permanently housed, that's 47%, 79% was enrolled in treatment, 18% returned to jail on new charges, and 21% charges were resolved. And I will say too that out of those that we've seen, 4% were misdemeanors, 96% were felonies. So, do you have any questions for us?
I have just one, real quick. And is there any other peer support staff in the house?
In here?
Yep.
I don't believe so.
No, no more? Okay. Just want to be sure we have captured everybody. Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments?
I asked these questions at the when I came to the Citizen Advisory Committee, but I'm still trying to get it straight in my head, so I'll ask again. Identifying class members, like it says here in the flow chart you have that it says behavioral health / competency concerns. Obviously that's kind of a looser, I mean, we're not talking about someone that would be for sure adjudicated by the court as incompetent, stand trial, which, you know, I know to be a very, very strict small group and a very high, I mean, I've had a few of the clients in that way in my career, and there are folks that I would not be having a discussion about a bunch of expectations of behavior. I mean, so you, for this program to work, you must have a little bit broader of a group that you can work with than just the adjudicated incompetent.
Well, so I've been in the jail for a few years, so there's many people that I recognize that I've known that has a history of competency restoration. We can also, depending on the individual, take potential competency restoration individuals that maybe just haven't had the evaluation done. But I will say we have access to the Western State list, and we always, if somebody says that they've had restoration or have had the evaluation, we have to investigate it. So, but our main focus is on those class members.
I guess I'm thinking of like, if I'm the defense lawyer and I say, hey, I have this guy, I'm not a doctor, obviously. I just am seeing something that raises a red flag.
Mhm.
And I say, there may be an issue here. Does that mean you guys can run with that? Or do you have to drill down and really make a determination that there's a level of incompetency? I mean, how loose is your class, I guess is what I'm trying to get at, that you can work with?
They have to be class members. Yeah. So it's,
But can you go based on just an attorney or a prosecutor or?
no, we have to, we will contact Western State Hospital to see if they have had an evaluation at one point. Yeah, so we have to investigate it.
And if not, then they're not part of the class.
It depends on the individual. So if we think that somebody might need one, instead of sitting there and waiting for them to get the evaluation, we can move forward with diversion or reentry. Yeah.
But your calculus in your head is, I think this person is going to, if they were evaluated, is going to meet that level.
Yes. Yeah, and I also want to state too that our program has been successful, and we were asked to speak at the National Behavioral Health Conference in Nashville, Tennessee this year. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Good, I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nationally recognized. And? Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
My name's Laura Toney. I'm the Diversion Program Manager for Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, so I help manage the True Blood program. And I just wanted to support Morgan's comments about potential class members. So out of the 251 individuals that we screened at the jail, half of those were class members. So we're seeing about 125 class members in 1 year in the jail. So it is a large number of class members that we can screen into the program. And as far as potential class members go, our main priority is to divert individuals from the competency restoration process. And so if there's obvious signs that they're going to be found incompetent, we will go ahead and treat them as if they're a class member. It's happened rarely, but it does happen within this facility at Thurston County Jail.
Wonderful. And about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I was out at the BHO and worked with not only with Mark Friedman, but also with a True Blood peer support, and a gentleman who was the day before had graduated from the True Blood program successfully, and is playing on TCM Channel 3 right now, and it was a very beautiful success story about this gentleman and how he benefited from it, and he tells his whole story about schizophrenia and in jail and going through the program. And it's a true testament to the True Blood.
Thank you,
So
yes.
thank you very much.
I'm very proud of our staff as well as our class members. They're some of the most resilient individuals I've ever met in my life.
That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Great. Thank you. That takes us now to department items. Agenda item number 5, Treatment Sales Tax Annual Report. Carrie Hennon, Program Manager, you're back again.
Hi, yes, I'm back. Again, my name is Carrie Hennon, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. I manage our treatment sales tax. As you know, TST is a 0.1% sales tax collected countywide. It is a restricted fund, meaning according to the statute, we can only spend it on mental health and substance use programs and services and the operation and delivery of our treatment courts, such as drug court, veterans court, mental health court. So we thought this fit well with Mental Health Awareness Month to give you sort of a recap of 2018. So we have our 2018 annual report, hopefully in your packets. And Lydia, I think we have a few slides to accompany this, possibly. I will jump right in. In the annual report on page 2, we have sort of a high-level summary of how much revenue did we collect, how much did we spend, how many people did we serve. So in 2018, this revenue source took in about $5.9 million. We spent about $5.5 million of that. With all these TST-funded programs, we served just over 5,000 people. There's a little asterisk. This may be a duplicated number because we get data from many different programs. Some people are accessing more than one TST-funded program. And this funded programs, 19 programs operated by Thurston County offices and departments, 10 programs operated in partnership with the Behavioral Health Organization, and at different points during the year, 6 programs operated directly by our community partners. If you look at the bottom half of that page, oh, I have the clicker. On to this one. So demographics. So who did we serve? Of those 5,000 people, we collect some very basic demographic information. This was about 2/3 male, 1/3 female. TST focuses pretty heavily on in-jail services, court programs, services for the justice-involved population. So that is somewhat of an explanation for why it's so heavily weighted toward males enrolled in TST-funded programs. Age groups, you'll see the largest single age group is the 25 to 54 category. That made up about 60% of people accessing TST-funded services. And then you see we do collect some basic information on where in the county people come from. We had 13% who were identified as transient or homeless, and then representation really from all over the county. Starting in 2019, we will be collecting data on race and ethnicity to sort of understand a little bit more about who's accessing these programs. The next slide is not exactly in your annual report. Can you see it? Yes. Okay. So we sort of break down our programs in kind of 3 major chunks and a couple smaller ones. So we have our youth and family programs, and this slide shows we spent about $1.7 million on youth and family programs. We have the treatment courts, about $1.6 million, and another $1.6 million on all our other adult programs. I hope I'm not being confusing by referring to 2 different documents. So you have the slide deck, and then hopefully you have an actual report with more detail in it, yes? So, maybe. So in the actual report on page 3 is a list of each and every program broken out into those different categories.
Do we have that?
I think you do. If you don't,
We don't.
we will borrow some from the peanut gallery.
I'd kind of like to see that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So again, yes, page 3 shows each and every program. So the treatment courts, the youth and family programs, adult programs, and then we have these 2 smaller categories of our community grants that we run a request for proposals and are operated directly by community providers, and then administration, so my time, Pam's time, and some of the training that different TST-funded programs are able to access. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pam Gant, who is our data analyst who collects lots of great information from our programs, to tell you a little bit more about the impact of some of these programs.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Okay, so as Carrie explained, we tried to categorize our programs based on youth and family, treatment courts, other adult programs. And then this year, since we have so many other adult programs, I also decided to break it up even further into the programs that are at the Thurston County Corrections Facility and then all other adult programs. So I've got 4 kind of categories in here. Whenever we collect data from our programs, we try to ask, well, from TST-funded programs, we try to ask 3 questions. How much, how well, and is anyone better off? So that's what our annual report is hopefully trying to do. There is more data we collect that's not in this report, but we just try to give a pretty good idea of what happened over 2018. So on page 4, you'll see that we have the treatment courts. There are 4 treatment courts that are under this category here, obviously drug court, DUI court, mental health court, and veterans court. Up on the slide, I also just put kind of a rolled up number of how many people ended up being served 2016, 17, and 18. I don't know why the slides have messed up all the numbers, but you can see that they've kind of been about the same amount of clients served per year over the last few years. We also wanted to try to put some leveraging funding in this report, so on page 4 you can kind of see that as well. And then we do some selective performance measures. So a lot of the time we like to focus on graduations or successful exits or something like that to kind of show that service quality, so how well is that program operating. Keep in mind that a lot of these programs are serving very high-risk individuals, so sometimes the percentages look maybe a little lower than you would expect or would want. But we kind of monitor this and we check these year after year to kind of see how things have been improving. In terms of how is anyone better off, we collect some recidivism data specifically for the treatment courts. You can see those there on page 4 as well. So we try to look at if there are individuals coming back into the system with new charges or new convictions over a certain period of time, either after starting treatment or after leaving a treatment or after leaving the treatment court completely. On page 5, you can see our youth and family programs, and again, I have a slide that rolls it up here over time. So through 2016 through now, you can see that it's actually increased. I believe it was last year the commissioners asked to really focus more on youth and family programs, and so that's a lot more of our funding has gone there. And as you can see, they serve a lot of individuals. One of the awesome programs, I think they've all left, but the Nurse Family Partnership, TST provides funding for a portion of that project as well. And so we've got information on here of them. Kind of the same thing. So we kind of selected out some performance measures. So again, graduations, successful exits. Other things we put in here, we're very interested in treatment engagement. So if a program is connecting an individual to treatment and referring them to treatment, is that individual actually following through with it? And so that's one of the other things that we try to take a look at for that service quality as well. And then just moving on. So the adult programs, for the slides, I put them all together. For the annual report, again, I have it broken out between the corrections programs and then all other adult programs. And it's kind of the same thing. We look at how many people were served over time. We're looking at those leveraged funds, so if they're getting funding sources from other places, and kind of blending those with those TST dollars to really make the best of that program. And then just different selective performance measures. So interesting on here, so for example, the crisis care program at the Thurston County Corrections, they only operate on weekends and holidays, so they kind of make up for that extra, because there is a program that does Monday through Friday, and so they had 241 interventions for inmates over the year. I think that's actually an incredible number, and if you flip over to page 7, its weekday counterpart, the mentally ill offender program, terrible name, great program, served 1,700 people, or 1,700 interventions. So if you kind of combine those, that's 2,000 mental health interventions that were required in the Thurston County Jail over 2018. I think that's an incredible number to kind of keep in mind. So that's kind of the overall what we've done with the annual report. Are there any questions about that? And probably something that you want to sit down and kind of digest, I think, on your own a little bit.
It's more than we have had years ago. So it's a lot to digest and a lot of good data being captured, and pretty impressive, the numbers as well. Oh my goodness.
And there are lots of other performance measures. We have worked with the OpenGov team on creating a data dashboard that we now have an interactive dashboard, so you can go on to our OpenGov page for TST and you can select a program, you can select a year, you can see how many people were served, you can see all the different measures we've collected, recidivism, all sorts of fun things. So we're really trying to make sure that data is really available and transparent to the public as well. So
And
I'm going
Pam,
to give it.
this report is on this annual report is online?
Yes, it is. I'm going to give it back over to Carrie because she's going to kind of summarize the rest of this.
Did you have some comments or questions?
Yes, I think our programs would agree that we collect a lot of data. Sometimes they're kicking and screaming, but we've been able to, I think, sort of paint a profile of who we're serving and, at least at a high level, some of the impacts. We just wanted to end with a couple of since this is our 2018 annual report, we highlighted some of the not as easily quantifiable accomplishments and some of our goals in 2019 that we're already working on. So some things in 2018. TST was moved from the Commissioner's Office over to Public Health and Social Services. That's created an opportunity to work with some sort of similar programs that serve similarly vulnerable populations, such as our housing team. We hired a new data analyst. Welcome, Pam. Almost a year now, but that was a 2018 accomplishment. We did some work on sort of gap analysis. We worked with our advisory committee on looking at those gaps and then developing a budget recommendation that was advanced to the Board of County Commissioners. And we did some work around our measures and the framework that Pam mentioned, how much, how well is anyone better off, results-based accountability. In 2019, Pam mentioned the data dashboard. We've checked that off our 2019 list and are seeing our TST Advisory Committee as really the primary audience for reviewing this data on an ongoing basis. You have been part of discussions about bringing some new perspectives to the TST Advisory Committee, and we look forward to seeing you guys there hopefully this Friday morning to meet our new and returning members on the committee. We have a really great group with some really interesting and diverse backgrounds. And we're rolling out some new programs that the county commissioners agreed to fund last year through TST, a new position in pretrial services, a new position in probation, and some other new programming. So great stuff going on in 2019. Whew. Okay, any
and
questions?
one of the biggest challenges is going to be the last one.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention that one.
Plan for 2020.
Yeah, as I think Mark Friedman referenced a couple times, big changes in the overall behavioral health system in 2020. TST is a small but mighty slice of that.
Yeah.
So I think as we understand more about how those changes play out, what new gaps might be created in that transition, there may be kind of new areas that the TST Advisory Committee and the Board of County Commissioners need to look at in terms of can TST fill some of those potential new gaps. So, any questions for me?
Can you repeat what you said about the parameters for what the programs money can be used for? Like what do the connections have to be?
Yeah, so the statute, it really it has kind of two categories. One is the operation and delivery of therapeutic courts. So as it relates to a therapeutic court, and that is also defined in statute, it's pretty broad how TST funding can be spent. So for example, we do fund the time of the judicial officer. We fund the prosecuting attorney's time and public defense's time. So really the whole package of operating a treatment court. If it's not in the context of the treatment court, the language of the statute, I'm channeling Elizabeth Petrich here, is a bit narrower. So it talks about mental health programs and services. So it's either treatment, actual direct mental health and substance use treatment, and supportive services that are part of a coordinated treatment plan. So for example, we can fund housing as a supportive service, but only in connection with a treatment plan, or case management, but only in connection with behavioral health treatment.
Same with like nurse family part you said.
So nurse family partnership, we only fund the portion of NFP that serves women who have an identified mental health or substance use issue, and it's considered to be part of their overall treatment plan. So we can't fund the entire program.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right.
And we'll see you and Pam on Friday. Friday morning.
Yes,
Good.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Agenda item number 6, homelessness and a public health crisis update. Keely Marino, our homeless and affordable housing coordinator.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Keely
Good
Marino
afternoon.
with Public Health and Social Services, the Homeless Prevention and Affordable Housing Coordinator. Thank you so much for letting me present to you today and give you kind of an update and an overview. Specifically, I'd like to talk about what we've been talking about all afternoon, mental health and how that impacts our homeless citizens and our unsheltered citizens. As you all know, I think, or you may not know, that my master's degree is in counseling psychology, and so Mental Health Awareness Month is one that's near and dear to my heart. So I just would like to review that we're going to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary next month of our declaration of homelessness as a public health crisis in Thurston County. And some of the quotes that I want to pull out of that declaration are, they're abbreviated, but homelessness has a devastating effect on human lives, period, right? Physical health was the most commonly reported disability among those in our community experiencing homelessness, and people without housing have high rates of chronic physical health and mental health conditions, and 3 times as likely to die early. These statements are true. And I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into the issues around mental health and folks experiencing homelessness on the street. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 20 to 25% of folks experiencing homelessness have severe mental health issues, compared to only 6% of the general population. So that's a staggering statistic. There are 3 kinds of ways we can look at mental health and how it impacts homelessness. One is pre-existing. So a human being can have a pre-existing mental health or severe mental health issue. A person could have psychosis. A person could have a diagnosis that makes it really difficult to maintain employment or to find employment. That person could have low income due to their mental health disability, making housing really unstable and making it difficult to provide for themselves through employment. A young person could experience a significant level of trauma in their homes as children. These adverse childhood experiences, it's proven through research that the higher number of adverse childhood experiences a young person may have as a child directly impacts their mental health, their physical health, and impacts their morbidity. Also, institutional racism and other social issues such as sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, transphobia, ableism, intergenerational poverty, all of these impact a person's mental health on a daily basis. And if that's on top and intersecting with adverse childhood experiences, on top of perhaps a severe mental health diagnosis, can make housing unstable, much less employment, something that is easy to sustain. So once a person might find themselves on the street for whatever reason, living on the streets and being homeless is traumatic in and of itself. When people are living on the street, there's a high, their exposure to physical and medical issues are extraordinarily increased. HIV, AIDS, hepatitis A, B, and C, skin disorders such as MRSA, cardiovascular illnesses, digestive issues, cancer, and a decrease in life expectancy. But then again, mental health issues, even if a person finds themselves on the street for some reason, be it they lost their job or the rent has increased so much that they can't afford rent, their depression, anxiety, PTSD, secondary traumatic stress, and also an increase in potentially visible negative behaviors, or they find themselves in a situation that aggravates their symptoms that they already are experiencing for pre-existing diagnoses. It increases a person's vulnerability and exposure to victimization. People on the streets are routinely exposed to potential trafficking situations. When I was working at Rosie's Place, working with young people who are experiencing homelessness, sexual assault is very prevalent, something that young people on the streets and all people on the streets are exposed to as a potential risk, as well as trafficking or survival using various means that would be detrimental to a person's mental and physical well-being just to stay alive. I was just at the Balance of State Continuum of Care steering committee meeting this last week, and then moved on to the American Planning Association, which I'll mention in a minute, to talk about temporary encampments. But one of the things I learned at the Balance of State Continuum of Care, and it was mentioned earlier today, around stigma and how stigma directly impacts a person's mental well-being, is that the Department of Commerce's Office of Family and Adult Homelessness did 4 listening sessions around the states earlier this year. They did a listening session in Spokane, Yakima, Aberdeen, and Mount Vernon, meeting specifically with people who are currently experiencing homelessness, who have recently left homelessness. And they were asked, what is getting in the way of us ending homelessness? And across the board, the number one answer was stigma. And NIMBYism, we're not in my backyard. So from folks experiencing homelessness right now, though that's the number one identified impediment to ending homelessness. The second was political process. All of these experiences that a person can have on the streets can erode a person's resiliency. And when your resiliency is challenged or eroded, you might find yourself embracing various means of coping. When you're on the streets and you're experiencing hypervigilance because of your own PTSD or because you don't feel safe, you might use substances to decrease your sense of hypervigilance or stress. If you're really cold, you might use another substance that makes you feel warm. So the relationship and intersectionality between mental health and mental illness on the street and substance abuse there's a very close relationship, which we've all been talking about and is very understood in our community as being a problem. A third way is that when a person is experiencing homelessness and on the streets and they have mental health issues that are popping up or their symptoms are exacerbated by the stresses of living on the streets, there are complications with getting the recovery that they need. Increased stigma and stereotyping can keep a person from wanting to access services. Adverse experiences with services for whatever reason can keep a person from accessing services. Not having transportation, not having ID, not having insurance can keep a person from accessing recovery services. So that can prolong unsheltered individuals who experience mental health or having mental health issues will stay on the street longer and become our chronically homeless population. So folks who are unsheltered and who are suffering from severe mental and physical illnesses, who lack access to behavioral health, and substance abuse treatment can demonstrate behaviors that appear negative and or criminal. Some of these behaviors are related to their survival, and some of these behaviors can be a symptom of a person who currently has or is experiencing a trauma. As you heard today, in Thurston County, we have an extraordinary, robust, and diverse system to address mental health and mental illness on the streets in our homeless population and with other vulnerable populations. And even with our robust system that we participate in directly or that in which we fund, it's still not enough. Our need for treatment and recovery in the homeless population is mirroring the need for housing. Our need has outgrown our current resources. Flipping the paper. Treatment is available also. There is treatment. There's low barrier, no barrier options in our community to access opioid treatment. At the buprenorphine clinic, at the Capital Recovery Center, in the first 2 months, they had 270 unique individuals stepping inside and receiving treatment, most of whom returned to continue receiving treatment. And yet, even if a person was to become stabilized in their treatment towards either substance abuse or mental health, the housing isn't necessarily there or isn't there for them to make that pathway from recovery into housing. Thus, we lead into my time with the American Planning Association Conference on Planning for Emergency Encampments, which is very timely considering the public hearing that we had last week and the public hearing that Lacey will be having for their emergency ordinance. This was a conference of planners. I am not a planner. That was very eye-opening for me. But it was a conversation on the reality across our state that the need has outgrown our housing stock across the state. That even though in 2015, the United States Interagency on the Council for Homelessness recommended not including emergency encampments into a homeless housing continuum, across the state, and I would argue across the country, that is no longer possible. We need to include emergency responses to houselessness in our continuum. One of the quotes that I heard while there, this is not my quote, but I wanted to write it down on my Why Care, which is, when the most vulnerable of us thrive, we all thrive. And I thought that was really, and it was in relationship to emergency encampments. So trauma survivors are negatively impacted by instability, inconsistency, constant hypervigilance, negative stereotypes and stigma, and of course, the lack of housing. We need to, as a county and as a state, reframe our conversation around addressing homelessness and the accompanying health issues as we move forward. The landscape has shifted. It is not shifting, it has shifted. Behavioral health and recovery and behavioral health and emergency response to houselessness and homelessness is a huge part of a robust homeless crisis response system, and it's imperative that we understand that once we take responsibility for an emergency response, we're also taking responsibility for offering and addressing the needs of behavioral health and substance abuse. So when we offer a response, that's got to be mirrored, or we have to understand that we're also taking that responsibility to address those other issues. I feel like a good example of this in terms of a county mitigation site or an emergency encampment in our county is the downtown Olympia mitigation site. And I say that because I spent a lot of time down there. But I spent a lot of time yesterday talking with Ann Larson, and Ann Larson is the outreach manager for the crisis units down in Olympia, at the Olympia Police Department. And she identified it as one of the biggest behavioral health triage centers that we have in Thurston County. We have some of our most visibly affected by substance abuse and mental illness folks and houselessness currently staying in that mitigation site. And because they have a 24/7 walking patrol, they have a 14 hours a day, 7 days a week crisis response unit. They've got the Familiar Faces program, which is a heavy lifting peer support response, as well as the other providers down there. They've got folks, all of those services being able to respond to crises, mental health or substance or what have you, but they are also building relationships with those people in those mitigation sites, know them by name and know their stories, and that relationship piece is what causes the trust to happen between houseless individual and service provider, and has been a huge indicator for recovery and access to housing. When I met with the law enforcement crew to discuss their perspectives on the 5-year plan, and Olympia was there, Lacey PD, Tumwater PD, and our sheriff's office were there, it was by far the most identified need is some kind of regional response, some kind of regional crisis recovery or crisis response unit to take some of the burden off of law enforcement officers to respond to these mental health crises that are happening on the streets or in emergency encampments. And that it was definitely, when I think about all of the conversations we had at the Planning Association's conference, as well as we move forward in considering how we respond to this emergency county-wide, to consider that behavioral health and the responsibility of the behavioral health and the substance use treatment piece. And that's all I have to say.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, you ended.
I'm really bad at endings. I want to like,
close.
ta-da!
Yeah, for questions or comments?
At our public hearing, we had a reference from Olympia, a member of the Olympia Planning Commission, to a study done by, it was done in New Jersey, I think it was. And it said there was basically only 2 studies. One was from this Department of Corrections in Minnesota, and this one, I think, New Jersey. I have it. I asked him to send it to me after the meeting, and he did. I wondered if you had a chance, if you remember that or have seen that. It was basically about, how to deal with someone with a sex offense conviction in a resident situation. It was actually not talking about a camp or a mitigation site. It was talking about residence restrictions in any type of housing. The conclusion of that study was that there really wasn't much data, but the data that they had pointed to the fact that there was no point in those types of restrictions in terms of community safety, recidivism, et cetera. And again, they weren't talking about a mitigation camp.
Right.
They were talking about it more broadly. I just wondered if you'd seen that or had any perspective or additional information on that. I know Olympia's kind of weighed this issue. And
Right. I have not read that report. I would like to read that report. I know that at the conference there was an array of presentations on encampments or other emergency housing responses throughout Washington State, and that some of them were higher barrier and some of them were not. And I would say from personal experience that working directly with sex offenders in a mixed population. So when I was the director of Rosie's Place Young Adult Shelter with Community Youth Services, we had a process of serving registered sex offenders during the day. We worked with them in terms of their conditions of release, so we knew that we didn't want to put them at risk of accidentally reoffending or what have you. We worked, and we never had an incident. We never once was there a concern around their behavior. If people are coming into a service, if they're a high risk for offending, in my experience, they're not going to access a service that asks your name and does an intake and gets your name into HMIS and goes over, conditions of release and lets you stay there. So that's kind of anecdotal, but I would look forward to reading that report and giving you some of my thoughts.
Okay, I'll send you off. I'll forward to you. Thanks.
And there'll be a lot of further discussion regarding the barrier, whether there's no barrier.
Right.
Or we grab some DNA and put someone through Ancestry.com. I mean, there's a widespread in between, and I'm getting a lot of emails, as my seatmates are, regarding what's it matter if someone has a murder warrant for the arrest out of California? What's it matter if they stay in a camp?
Right.
I think it matters.
Okay.
But, I look forward to that. I had a discussion this morning with Liz Davis, perhaps you know her.
Yes.
Regarding the Healthy Youth Survey and the various disparities with our kids with regard to mental health and access to resources and such, as right along the same lines as you were saying right up front in our county, which is very telling. But I want to ask you this. I think I might know the answer. When it comes to our homeless folks or houseless folks, do they know that there are resources available to them, and do they know how to access them?
I'd say many do. It depends on their age group. It depends on where they tend to spend most of their time. It depends on how service shy they are. It depends on if they have a relationship with some of the so downtown in Olympia, if they have a relationship with those officers down there, with walking patrol, then they're 24/7, they have access to those resources. So it depends on where they are at regionally, their age, their reclusivity. But I'd say that the further out you go, the less information there from downtown Olympia, the less knowledge there is around resources, generally speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Keely.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Takes us to agenda item number 7, where we report on any public health or social service involvement that we've had since the last board meeting. Do you have any?
A couple of things that I just wrote down happened since the last meeting. The opioid task force, which I participate in, there's a web presence coming, is what I understood. And so people should be on the lookout for that, which will give them more information to the public on what we're doing on that front. I ran into a citizen. This is just kind of a topic I wanted to maybe let for a future discussion. I ran into a citizen who'd worked in this field. It was at the Olympia's homeless workshop, but she wanted me to know about a gap in our system with medical respite, folks coming out of the hospitals, and what we might be able to do about trying to find a way to plug that gap. So it's just a topic I wanted to share, and maybe we could talk about it at a later time. And then the last thing was 2 different people recommended a book that I read, so I read it, and I would recommend it to anyone that doesn't know knows as little as I did before I read it about the opioid crisis and how it all came together, called Dreamland by Sam Quinones. And I really found it's a super. There was a few days where I just couldn't put it down. It's really, really well written, really easy to read, brings together a whole number of strands. You can really understand the scope of how we got where we are, and it'll make you really pretty angry about how we got where we are based on greed and covering up information. And a lot of people have died unnecessarily because of drug companies and information that was not appropriately provided to doctors about the incredible addictive nature of the opioids that we prescribe. So those are my health related activities.
It's called Dreamland?
Dreamland.
Okay.
Author is Quinones, Quinones. It's 2015 book, I believe.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
And the only thing I wanted to ask or report about is reading in the paper this morning, the Olympian, that they're at Western State, not only the number of assaults against staff, but they have a chickenpox, I think it's chickenpox outbreak in Western State Hospital. Have we heard?
I will have to Google that.
Oh, let me find it real quick. I don't think it was smallpox. It got to be chickenpox. But it was, when I read the article, it was rather disturbing. Anyway, I didn't know if you'd heard about it, doctor, but just beware. That's icky. Oh, let's get the official answer now.
Okay. Thank you for being aware of these things and noticing them. I have not heard about that one specifically, so I'll have to look into it.
Okay. Appreciate that. Just a heads up. It's amazing how this stuff, you hear about it and boy, it clicks, you know. Oh, that's important to know. And that was it. That's all I have. So now we're moving on to the health officer's report.
Thank you.
Yes.
I want to address two separate topics, and there's a lot to address under the second one. The first one is emergency preparedness and response. I'm very proud of that section of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, who successfully partnered with multiple partners to run what we call a pod exercise, point of distribution, with the idea that if we were exposed to bioterrorism, say the spread of anthrax through spores, a way to get people the necessary antibiotic to protect them within a 48-hour time period. That's a lot of people to protect. But our public health and emergency preparedness team, they partnered with Nisqually Tribe, the Chehalis Tribe, all three colleges, SPSCC, Evergreen, and St. Martin's. And the location of the pod exercise was actually at SPSCC. And our Medical Reserve Corps also participated. And it was not only an important exercise to see how many people could be run through the pod in an hour's time. We had a lot of fun. So there's entry, screening questions, then if there's anything out of the ordinary, you go over to medical, and then you go to dispensing, and then out the door. So I'll stop with that. Happy to answer any questions. The second area is lots of infectious diseases. I would like to say that our communicable disease staff has been busy investigating suspect and confirmed cases of arboviral diseases. Those include Zika, chikungunya, and dengue. They've looked into chronic hepatitis B and C, Legionella, mumps, salmonella, and shigatoxin producing E. coli. That's one section of infection. I want to talk about measles. We were happily declaring on the 28th of April that we had now had 2 incubation periods in the state of Washington with no more measles cases. And now we learned yesterday that a gentleman from Pierce County was diagnosed with measles and unfortunately was very mobile during the time that he was contagious, including at least 4 days around the SeaTac airport. And so we are again on alert for new people getting sick with measles because if they were exposed, 9 out of 10 people who are susceptible, who haven't been vaccinated, will get the measles. So this is another plug to please get vaccinated. It's never too late. Please look at your immunization records. I want to let people know that House Bill 1638 was signed into law by the governor of the state on May 10th. We're very happy about that. We want to congratulate our legislators and the governor for supporting the public health work that this does. What it does is it takes away personal and philosophical exemptions for only one vaccine, and that is the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. There are still religious and medical exemptions. The State Department of Health has actually I wanted to let people know, our listening audience know, that if you Google the Washington State Department of Health, a banner comes up, and then you can put in the search engine exemption law change, and it will take you to a page that they're just developing. It just has a few things on it now, but more will come into effect of what's happening with this law. The law was signed into effect on May 10th. It will actually be implemented on July 28th of this summer, and it will apply to public and private schools, to daycares, employees and volunteers at child care centers to provide immunization records that show they have received the MMR vaccine, or a blood test proving that they are immune to measles. And this is a very good vaccine because one dose protects 93 out of 100 people, and 2 doses protects 97 to 98% out of 100 people. And that's fantastic. I wanted to let you know that speaking of another vaccine preventable disease, we recently released some information about the fact that in the homeless population in this state, we have had at least 2 individuals without housing who have hepatitis A. That is another vaccine preventable disease. 1 dose of the hepatitis A vaccine will give you 92% protection. So 92 out of 100 people are protected if they have that vaccination. I want to call out partnerships again because the Providence Community Care Center and Olympia Free Clinic and Valley View Health Center and the Medical Reserve have all been working to get hepatitis A vaccine into the arms of people who are not housed. And the funding for that vaccine comes from the same section of the health department as we just heard from Kaylee just a little bit earlier, the Housing and Homeless Prevention Department. And we really appreciate the partnership and the efforts to get people vaccinated. They come to the Providence Community Care Center, and it's a very it's a place where there's trusted relationships. Again, we talked about that, and so they are more willing to receive the hepatitis A vaccine. And lastly, I'm happy to say that flu activity in Washington State is currently low. So far in the 2018-2019 season, we've had 218 flu-related deaths, 2 in children, sadly, and 216 in adults. This is still less. We look at the way influenza hits us by weeks of the year. So we count from week 40 of 2018 through week 39 of 2019, and currently we're in week 19. So for the same time period last year, we had actually more deaths, 283 last year as compared with 218 this particular flu season. And with that, I will stop. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Well, that first category of strange sounding diseases that you talked about. You said communicable investigators are investigating, and you strung off 3 or 4 names I never heard of.
Yeah.
Yes, arboviruses. Well, you might have heard of the Zika virus.
Yeah.
There's a class of viruses, and arboviruses. They're viruses carried through through mosquitoes.
So what does this mean? This means somebody in Thurston County has had symptoms of this or identified? That's why why were you telling us that?
Oh, just because our wonderful communicable disease investigator, Beth here, got a call, and she helped take care of it. So
a call from where?
Well, I don't know in this particular case. Do you recall? I don't want to put you on the spot.
We have to use the microphone, Beth.
Well, thank you. So what I do as an investigator is we would typically, there's laws
that mandate health providers, labs, notify us as the health jurisdiction.
Right.
And so what they need to do is there's notifiable conditions and they have so many hours to report it. So what, in this particular case, we got a positive lab result. And then what I have to do for the investigation is that I then call the provider to ask them the information, what were the signs and symptoms, and there's a whole slew of questions that I ask depending on what the disease is. And then I also do the investigation with the client themselves with the case and ask them to identify what the source is. Because what we're really concerned about is if the exposure is here in the county, how do we prevent it? What can we do for health promotion? Such as the measles case that's currently in Pierce County, that involves so much time and investigation to identify all the contacts. And so it's, yeah, it's just a wonderful job, but it's a lot of work. Does that answer your question of?
Yeah, it does. I mean, if I guess I was trying to figure out what triggered our concern about these conditions, and it's, you said in this case it's a labor's call from, because it's on a list of notifiable conditions, and then you're going to try to find out. And so the person might have gone to their doctor and had some kind of test, but they're going to get a call from Thurston County Public Health out of the blue and said, guess what, we get to talk to you about, and people are cooperative about that usually, or?
They are, and one of the things I'm looking forward to in our department is to expand and continue to build relationships with people and with providers to let them know that when there is a notifiable condition that the public health department will be calling, because we're concerned about the individual's health, but my role is I'm concerned about the public. Yeah. And so that's why public health, that's why communicable disease is a core part of what we do at public health.
So there are 4 or 5 of these types of conditions that are diseases that you got calls about?
There's actually, there's a lot.
Okay.
If you pull up notifiable conditions, there's.
Not all of them are infectious. There can be things like elevated blood lead levels. But the general idea is these conditions were made notifiable because we need to protect the public from these illnesses. And if they affect one individual, there's likely other people that may or may not have been exposed.
Yeah, just like what you were talking about earlier, acknowledging water. So thank you very much for that proclamation, because that's one of the things that people can get. And so that would be something I would investigate if they had something as an individual that was waterborne.
In your Board of Health binder that we covered in the orientation last week, you have a complete list of all notifiable conditions. And for members of the viewing public, they can go to the Washington State Department of Health website and they can look up and see what those conditions are. But we investigate all of them, have an amazing, but small but mighty team that works to make sure our community is safe.
You listed like 3 or 4 though, is that right?
Well, we get calls that come in.
There's a lot.
Every day.
Like a lot in the last week or 2, you mean? Like just all the time?
Yes, it's constant. And like during my typical day, I can have questions regarding TB, measles, Zika. I can have E. coli, salmonella.
From labs and doctors calling.
From labs and doctors calling, and also just the public calling, which is great. But it just makes for a very full day.
We investigate over 100 cases each month, suspected cases or of notifiable conditions reported to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I just want to follow up real quick. It was chickenpox at Western State, and they think they have it under control, but they haven't reached the, that was a 2-week incubation?
21 days.
21 days. The last one was May 3rd.
Okay, so we still have.
We're still in that bubble, I guess.
Yes.
Anyway, that's that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
And good article on vaccinations in the paper. Well done.
It's a group work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, now the director's report.
Thank you so much. I will keep it brief in the interest of time, but I want to say thank you again to all of our presenters and guests. It was wonderful to be able to recognize Nurses Week and the amazing work that they do, and our mental health advocates and professionals and our drinking water, the staff and the partners that we have in our community that are so critical to what we do. And there's another proclamation that we didn't get to recognize today, but I really wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the very important and critical work of our environmental health specialists. So we have over 40 people in our environmental health division that do amazing work every day. And last week on Monday, May 7th, Governor Jay Inslee proclaimed Environmental Health Specialist Day. And I just want to share one thing that the governor mentioned in the proclamation and relate it to the work that we do so we can recognize the important work of our staff. So environmental public health specialists strive to protect the health of the public by reducing or eliminating environmental health risk factors that cause human suffering, disease, and injury through partnership, consultation, education, inspection, investigation, and enforcement in order to prevent disease transmission, ensure safe disposal of sewage, toxic material, solid waste, and ensure quality of life. That's just a little bit of what the governor said, but I just want to say thank you to all of our environmental health staff who hopefully have already gone home for the day, but many are not because they work oftentimes 24/7, 365 days a year. You heard from Eric Iverson, who works tirelessly in the lab every day. We have environmental health specialists that help to educate homeowners about septic maintenance. They monitor our lakes and our streams and our shorelines to make sure that the water that we drink and the lakes and beaches that our kids swim in and the people that recreate in boats and do fishing, and we make sure that the fish that people eat are safe and that the water that they're in is healthy. Every day, our staff are inspecting restaurants to make sure that the food that we eat is safe, and our hazardous and solid waste specialists are making sure that our land and water is free of toxins and hazardous materials, and that helps to protect our marine life, our wildlife, and all of the people that live, work, and play in Thurston County. So we're just very proud of the work that our environmental health specialists do every day, and I didn't even cover just a portion of what they do. So speaking of Drinking Water Week and everything that our staff does, last month you heard about our surface water programs, and specifically one of the lakes that we often talk about is Summit Lake here in Thurston County, because that is a lake where citizens do draw their drinking water from. And we had investigated toxic algae bloom last month, and we were able to, and there was antitoxin levels that were a concern to the health of the people that use that lake. We were able to lift that advisory right before fishing season started so that people could recreate on the lake. We still don't ever recommend that people drink lake water as we can't guarantee that it's safe, but currently it is below, the antitoxin levels are below levels of concern for public health. We did have unusually warm weather last week, and that may continue. And so I just want to take that as an opportunity to remind that those that are recreating, kids that are going to streams and lakes and swimming, that they wear life jackets. We've already had in the state of Washington 7 fatalities on boats, and we just want to remind people to please be careful, wear life jackets, protect kids, and always be vigilant to watch them and protect them from accidental drowning. People are interested more in what we do in terms of monitoring our swimming beaches. We're very grateful that the commissioners invested in helping to keep our Thurston County swimming beaches safe this upcoming summer. And so for people that are watching and are interested in learning more, can go to our Thurston County Public Health website. There's a link called Swimming in Thurston County, and people can click that to learn more about the safety of the water and what we're doing to ensure that our water is clean, safe, and healthy for those that are using it, and for those that are interested in learning more about our toxic algae program. They can also visit our website. We have a special page dedicated for that. We are monitoring that all the time, and we also have a listserv that people can sign up to receive a newsletter to learn more, or visit the Washington State Toxic Algae website. More on water. On May 23rd, I would just like to invite members of the public who may be interested in learning more about water quality, quantity, or stormwater to join me, as well as my fellow directors in Thurston County, Joshua Cummings from the Community Planning and Economic Development, and Jennifer Walker, our Public Works Director, will be joining together at Evergreen State College from 4 to 6 p.m. To do a seminar and answer questions, and Commissioner Hutchings will be chairing and facilitating that conversation, and we'll be talking all about water for those who are interested in learning more. And that concludes my report for today. Do you have any questions?
It's a lot to cover, and you didn't even hit it all. I have nothing else. Do you have anything?
No.
If there's nothing for the good of the order, the Board of Health meeting for May the 14th, 2019 is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.